Across the Fallout franchise, there exists plenty of constants: pistols, underground Fallout shelters, bottle cap currency. And while each of these things have gone through different changes and iterations, the topic of today's video is no different. In each of these 6 mainstream games, there have existed some form of assisted combat targeting, VATS. But how exactly has this exciting and iconic feature changed throughout the franchise? Let's talk about it. This is the evolution of VATS. Now, before the introduction of VATS in Fallout 3, the early Fallout games, Fallout 1 and 2, had a unique mechanic called aimed shot. Aimed shot, also known as targeted shot, was an integral part of the turn-based combat system that defined gameplay in the original Fallout titles. Aimed shot was a combat mechanic that allowed players to aim at specific body parts of their target. It was an evolution of the traditional turn-based combat system, giving players more control on a micro level. Similar to the system we know now, VATS, when using aimed shot, players were prompted with an image of their target. From here, one could select specific body parts of their enemies for targeted attacks. The available body parts typically included the head, torso, eyes, groin, arms, and legs, with each having its own set of consequences when successfully hit. For example, crippling an arm could prevent an opponent from using a two-handed weapon, or a headshot could knock a target out. Aimed shot added a unique layer of precision and strategic decision-making to combat. It was no longer, my turn, I shoot you, your turn, you shoot back. Rather, players had to consider the strengths and weaknesses of their target, choosing the body parts that could either maximize damage or incapacitate enemies effectively. And aim shot increased the chances of scoring a critical hit, allowing for more damage and other various effects. The aim shot mechanic in the early Fallout games laid the groundwork for the more dynamic and visually engaging VATS system introduced in Fallout 3 and implemented in all titles since. It added another layer of depth to an already strategic game. The transition from aimed shot to VATS marked a significant evolution in how players engaged with combat in the Fallout universe. Fallout 3 marked a monumental change in the series. Moving away from the trimetric RPG, Fallout was now a first- and third-person action RPG. With this significant change, the game left behind its traditional turn-based combat and embraced a more dynamic and action-oriented approach to battle. VATS became a defining feature, marrying the strategy of turn-based combat with the action of real-time combat. VATS, or Vault-Tec Assisted Targeting System, is a unique combat mechanic first introduced into the Fallout series with Fallout 3. Unlike the purely turn-based aim shot mechanic in Fallout 1 and 2, VATS in Fallout 3 combined real-time combat with the ability to pause and plan. This hybrid system allowed players to engage in fluid, real-time combat while retaining the strategic elements of selecting specific targets and body parts. VATS maintained the core concept of aim shot by allowing players to target specific body parts of their enemies. By targeting the head, torso, arms, legs, or other appendages depending on the creature you're fighting, it allowed the player to strategically damage these areas, increasing the chance of crippling said part. This was an effective way of slowing down a melee target by crippling the legs, or making them flinch more by crippling the torso. VATS added a layer of tactical depth to combat encounters. However, when using a melee weapon, gone was the ability to target certain parts of the body. One instead only had a single option to target the entire enemy, and while this wasn't as tactical for those who like to get up close and personal, it still became a useful tool for gap-closing enemies that were out of arm's reach, as VATS would teleport the player a short distance. The system wasn't bad for melee users, just not as good as it was for ranged combat. By pressing the VATS button, the game would pause, and a new interface would appear over the enemy, showing the possible areas the player could target. Each selected attack in VATS displayed a percentage chance to hit, influenced by the player's skill with the equipped weapon, the distance to the target, and other factors. This percentage system added a sort of risk-reward element, forcing players to consider the likelihood of success with each shot. Each selected attack also consumed a certain number of action points. The amount used per attack was dependent on the weapon, and AP slowly regenerated over time. The management of AP would force players to consider when VATS should be used. After selecting the parts and accepting your decisions, the action points would be spent playing a slow-motion cinematic scene of the player automatically attacking their target. No actions can be taken during this scene, meaning the full attacks will keep playing until the sequence is over or the target has been destroyed. As the attack sequence only slows time, this means that the target can still seek cover and the player can still be attacked. The good news is that the Lone Wanderer only takes 10% damage during the VATS sequence, meaning that they end up being quite tanky when using the combat mechanic. And similar to aimed shot, VATS also had a 15% increased chance to score a critical hit. However, this did come with a 4x modifier to weapon degradation, so VATS wasn't all upsides. Fallout 3 also offered a variety of perks that could improve the effectiveness of the game's targeting system. Action Boy gave the player 25 additional action points, Commando improved VATS accuracy with two-handed rifles, Gunslinger was the one-handed counterpart, Concentrated Fire gave the player 5% increased chance for subsequent hits in VATS, Mysterious Stranger gave the player a chance to summon their own personal guardian angel, Nerves of Steel increased AP regeneration, Paralyzing Palm was a unique unarmed VATS attack that had a chance to stun your opponent, Sniper increased headshot hit chance by 25%, and my favorite perk of all time, Grim Reaper's Sprint, restored all AP after killing a target in VATS. It made for some awesome VATS kill chains. Fallout 3's VATS represented a pivotal moment in the evolution of the series' combat mechanics. It retained the strategic depth of its predecessors while embracing a more immersive and engaging approach. The success of VATS in Fallout 3 influenced subsequent entries in the Fallout series, cementing its status as a hallmark feature of the franchise. Fallout New Vegas, released in 2010, continued the legacy of VATS while refining and expanding upon its mechanics, notably in regards to melee combat. In New Vegas, VATS remained a pivotal component of the combat system, offering both familiar and new features. The core concept of real-time combat with the ability to pause and plan strategic attacks carried over from Fallout 3, allowing you to tactically engage enemies in the harsh Mojave wasteland. VATS in New Vegas maintained the body part targeting system, empowering players to selectively aim at the head, torso, arms, or legs, each with the goal of crippling the parts. The percentage-based accuracy system, influenced by factors such as the courier's skills, weapon type, and distance, persisted in New Vegas, requiring players to make calculated decisions in the heat of battle. Action points continued to play a crucial role, determining the number of attacks a player could perform in VATS before needing to regenerate. The management of AP added a strategic layer, compelling players to choose their targets wisely and consider when to unleash a barrage of targeted attacks. Fallout New Vegas introduced a few notable refinements to VATS, including the addition of melee and unarmed special attacks. Requiring a skill of 50, these specialized moves varied depending on the weapon used, offering players a broader array of tactical choices. In addition to these special attacks, melee and unarmed base damage was doubled when using VATS, making a melee VATS build significantly better. But while melee and unarmed was buffed in VATS, everything else was sort of nerfed across the board. The extra crit chance when using VATS was dropped from 15% to 5%, and the damage received was changed to 75% instead of 10%. And an odd change was made too. While all enemies were slowed in VATS slow-mo sequences, the ones that weren't being actively targeted were slowed less. It's quite a weird change, but overall, in addition to the other nerfs, this made dying while stuck in the VATS cinematic sequence much more common. Though New Vegas VATS did come with at least one upside. No longer did it inflict increased weapon degradation when used. New Vegas also included a greater variety of perks that benefited VATS players. Sure, it had similar perks to Fallout 3 like Action Boy, Commando, Concentrated Fire, Gunslinger, Nerves of Steel, Mysterious Stranger, Paralyzing Palm, and Sniper, but it also had more brand new ones. It featured a nerfed Grim Reaper's Sprint, no longer restoring the player's full action points on kill, but rather only 20. Outside of Obsidian Butchering, my favorite perk, it also had Center of Mass, granting more torso damage, Hobbler, giving more leg targeting accuracy, Math Wrath, reducing AP costs by 10%, Misfortune, a female version of the Mysterious Stranger, Plasma Spaz, reducing the AP costs for plasma weapons, and Sneering Imperialist, increasing the damage and VATS accuracy when attacking tribals, raiders, and junkies. Fallout New Vegas' VATS not only maintain the immersive and strategic qualities introduced in Fallout 3, but also brought refinements to the system, providing players with a more diverse and nuanced combat experience. While it was toned down a bit compared to the previous iteration, melee combat enjoyers could fully partake in and employ VATS in their combat arsenal. Fallout 4 marked yet another significant change to Fallout, and with it, VATS. Once again building upon Fallout 3 and New Vegas, Fallout 4's version of VATS retained its real-time combat with the ability to pause and strategically plan attacks, continuing the defining mechanic of the franchise. However, several key enhancements were introduced to make VATS even more dynamic and engaging. The body part targeting system from the past persisted, but now in a more fluid and cinematic manner. One significant change in Fallout 4's VATS was the removal of the freeze frame effect during target selection, opting for a more seamless transition between real-time and slowed-down combat. This adjustment created a sort of bullet time effect and added a better sense of continuity to the gameplay. No longer would the game world be put on pause so that you could choose your targets. The percentage-based accuracy system remained, but as the skills system was removed in Fallout 4, proficiency with certain weapons was gone with it. Now, accuracy in VATS was determined by considering factors such as weapon accuracy, mods, and distance to the target. A notable addition to Fallout 4's VATS was the introduction of critical hit banking. Fallout 4 reworked the critical hit system from past games, removing the chance to score random critical hits. Though there are some select perks, like Rank 4 Basher or chems like Overdrive, that will allow random crits. Now, instead of critical hits being a random occurrence, the use of VATS would build up the player's critical hit meter, allowing them to expend a crit whenever they so desired. This removed some of the randomness, but added another level of decision-making. Build up the crit meter on weaker mobs before saving the crit for a raider boss. Fallout 4's VATS also decreased player damage back to 10%, like how it was in Fallout 3. I guess some people were just tired of dying in VATS. And unlike past Fallout titles, it was now possible to prematurely cancel the VATS attack sequence, letting players have better control. As for perks, Fallout 4 has a handful of useful perks that directly affect VATS. Rank 5 Iron Fist allows for crits in VATS to paralyze opponents, Awareness shows resistances and gives 5% increase to hit chance and damage in VATS. Rank 3 Sniper gives an extra 25% headshot accuracy with scoped rifles. Penetrator allows players to target body parts that are behind cover. Concentrated Fire does the same as it always does, increased accuracy on consecutive targets. Attack Dog gives increased accuracy in VATS against enemies being held by dog meat. Action Boy gives more AP and more AP regen. Quick Hands Rank 2 makes reloading cost no action points. Blitz increases the melee range of attacks. Gun Fu deals more damage to targets beyond the first in the VATS sequence. Mysterious Stranger and its later ranks make him appear more often and give a chance to refill your critical meter. Better criticals make your critical hits do more damage. Critical Banker allows the player to store more crits, saving them for later. And Grim Reaper's Sprint is still not as good as Fallout 3's version. This one gives a 35% chance to refill all action points. and 4-leaf clover gives a chance to restore your critical meter. But thanks to Fallout 4's weapon modification system, it's not only perks that affect VATS. Each category of weapon mod can alter the effectiveness of VATS. Receivers affect the rate of attacks in VATS, barrel changes the action point cost of attacks, stock also changes the AP costs, larger magazines increase the AP cost, and some scopes can change AP cost. Fallout 4's version of VATS continued to refine and enhance the series' iconic combat system. The removal of freeze frame effects, the introduction of critical hit banking, and the incorporation of weapon modifications added a wider range of depth and strategic complexity to VATS, contributing to the overall evolution of this beloved feature in the Fallout franchise. But it's not the last game to feature VATS. Fallout 76, released in 2018, brought a distinctive take on the Vault-Tec Assisted Targeting System. In Fallout 76, VATS underwent significant adjustments to accommodate the real-time multiplayer nature of the game. Unlike its predecessors, VATS in Fallout 76 did not offer the traditional pause and target mechanic. Instead, it transformed into a real-time targeting system, allowing players to queue up shots on the fly. This adaptation was essential for maintaining a fluid combat experience in a multiplayer environment, where pausing the action for individual players would disrupt the flow of the game. VATS in 76 retained the percentage-based accuracy system, where factors such as the player's perks, weapon accuracy, and distance influenced the likelihood of a successful hit. However, the absence of the traditional pause feature meant that players needed to rely on some speedy decision-making skills to make effective use of VATS. For me, this adjustment meant that I'd be spending less time choosing the proper limbs and instead rely on VATS as an aimbot tool. And as VATS was now real-time, this made Fallout 76's version of VATS the most dangerous. No longer were enemies put on pause or slowed down. This made the strategy of using VATS as a damage mitigation tool moot. No longer could you avoid taking damage when using VATS. Actions were also no longer queued to be played out in a cinematic sequence, rather they happened instantaneously. Each shot fired, each second spent in the VATS screen, and each activation of VATS would all cost AP. This would prevent the continued use of VATS for all engagements, forcing players to wisely choose when to use the aimbot. And unfortunately, no longer could you continuously press VATS to scan for enemies, as each press of the VATS button would cost AP. Now you gotta rely on those eyeballs and crouch every so often to scan for enemies. Making a return in 76 was the critical hit bar first introduced in Fallout 4. Attacking enemies in VATS would build up the bar, and when full, allowed the player to choose when to fire off a critical hit. Several perks that improved VATS from past titles made a return in 76. Concentrated Fire, Gun Fu, Mysterious Stranger, 4-Leaf Clover, Grim Reaper's Sprint, Better Criticals all have associated perk cards. Action Point Manipulation made a return through Fallout 76's weapon modification system. Mods like the Automatic Receiver or Reflex Sight reduce the AP cost to fire in VATS. Fallout 76's survival conditions can also play a role when it comes to action points. While the penalties were removed from not being fed or hydrated, the positive bonuses remained. Being hydrated improved action point regen up to 35%, allowing more VATS usage. Being well-tuned, meaning having played an instrument for 30 seconds, also gives an extra 5% AP regen. Fallout 76's VATS represented a departure from the traditional formula while aligning with the demands of an online multiplayer experience. The adaptation to real-time targeting aimed to balance the strategic elements of VATS with the fast-paced nature of multiplayer engagements. While Fallout 76's VATS did mark a departure from its predecessors, it also showcased the series' willingness to evolve its mechanics to fit their next game. Over the course of the Fallout series, the Vault-Tec Assisted Targeting System, VATS, has undergone a remarkable evolution, adapting to the franchise's many changes over the years. Beginning with Fallout 1 and 2's turn-based aim shot, The introduction of real-time combat in Fallout 3 marked a pivotal shift. Fallout New Vegas refined VATS with weapon-specific attacks, and Fallout 4 seamlessly integrated it into the dynamic flow of combat. Fallout 76, being a multiplayer experience, transformed VATS into a real-time targeting system. Each iteration brought its own innovations, from body part targeting and critical hit enhancements to adjustments in pause mechanics and the introduction of critical hit banking. The evolution of VATS reflects the series' commitment to innovation while also doing its best to stay true to the past. That's all from me today, folks. If you liked the video, be sure to share and like, join the Discord. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.